Welcome back, everyone, to this evening's edition of Lehigh Valley Sports Scene. Dan Freemuth back with you here on the Service Electric Network. And so very pleased to be joined now by a pair of track cyclists currently training and competing over at Valley Preferred Cycling Center. I am joined by Nicky Degrendele from Belgium and Grant Koontz from right here in the United States. Guys, thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Of course. Sure.
Nicky, let's start with you because this is your first ever time in the United States as a whole. We'll talk more about that a little bit later on. But first time, more importantly, at Valley Preferred Cycling Center in Trexlertown. What are your impressions of T-Town so far?
It's a really good place. It's nice. The people are very nice. Like you say, it's my first time in the States, so I'm surprised at how, well, it's probably what I assumed, but it's a lot more greener than I thought. But no, I like the track, and it's a good place. You can train well, you can race well. It's really good.
Well, and you have specifically been racing well in your 3 weeks here so far. Specifically this past Friday, gold in the Elite Women's Scratch Race Final, silver in the Elite Women Kieran Final. What's working for you so far this summer?
I just traveled here to get points for Worlds, just to get myself up there and to race again, because it's after COVID, it's been a while that we've done a good block of racing, and this was a time, and it's very enjoyable.
Grant, you had a big day on Friday night as well. Second place in your finish in the Omnium on Friday night. We'll talk about that in a second. This is your third time here at T-Town. So first impressions compared to how you feel about Trexlertown now. What is it that makes Valley Preferred Cycling Center so special?
I think from the first day that I raced here back in 2019, like it just feels very homey. It feels like a lot of other tracks are indoors, and it feels very sheltered and very secluded almost. And I love like the crowds and the people and the fact that people can line the outsides of the track, and it's like it feels, I don't know, like summer camp.
Yeah, summer camp's a good thing. And the energy and the enthusiasm always there at Valley Preferred Cycling Center. And you mentioned the fans in the stands and the energy, the atmosphere is great. And I have to believe that only helps you guys when you're on the bikes. And Grant, let's talk about your second place finish in the Omnium on Friday. Full building, you had a great finish. Take us through what was working Friday night.
Yeah, so it started out Friday morning, and I actually had kind of a rough start in the scratch race. I played my cards pretty wrong, and so I kind of went through the rest of the day with nothing to lose and everything to gain. And I actually had a hard time keeping track of points in the end, and I didn't even realize I won got second until after the race was over. So I just went out and raced as hard as I could, and yeah, it just somehow came out on top. It's kind of a fluke.
Now, I doubt very much it was a fluke, but making lemonade out of lemons on Friday after, as you said, a bit of a rough start there, but a great finish, and you guys are compiling points, trying for world championships and ultimately, Olympic hopefuls, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later on. But let's focus now on kind of your guys' track cycling journey so far. And Grant, let's start with you. Originally a road and gravel cyclist turned track cyclist, but it hasn't always been a smooth sailing path for you. Take us through your journey a little bit.
Yeah, so I started out in the sport, I guess, later than most people, and I really didn't start racing seriously until I got to college. And by that point, I kind of felt like I was already on the back foot as far as competing at the elite level, but I've also noticed that persistence pays, and so I've kind of been fighting tooth and nail ever since then to just focus on improving one season at a time and one race at a time. And I've gone from living in my car and trying to pour everything into it to trying to make an Olympic team. So yeah, it's going up.
Do you feel though that, like, because of all that you've had to put into it, do you ever take a moment to stop and reflect on your journey and feel pride in the fact that there were many points in that road where it would have been easy to veer off and say, you know what, it just isn't working out? I give up, or I'm going to move on to something else. Do you ever take a moment to take a little pride in that your persistence has literally paid off?
Yeah, it definitely feels like there have been moments, I mean, almost monthly, where it's like, maybe it's over, like maybe this is the end. And then I kind of let the emotions settle down a little bit, take a step back, and sometimes reflect literally on like reading through some of my journals and what I've done through like over the years. And I realized that the name of the game from the start was just don't quit. And I've watched so many of my friends and teammates and whatnot, like they were better than me, but I'm still here and they're not. So
Yeah.
that's the win in my book.
Absolutely, a huge win, and something you should be very proud of, to be sure. And Nicky, let's go to your journey now. We were talking before we came out on set, talking about other sports, we'd play as a kid, and you said you did some gymnastics, but you were just always on a bike. And so it just was sort of a natural progression for you, always on a bike, to become a track cyclist.
Yeah, I think cycling's been in the family. My grandpa used to race. My dad used to race, and then my brother. But I think it's also, as a kid, you just want to be out and about, and like I was on bikes quite often, but I was also playing soccer with the boys and climbing trees and doing whatever was outside, basically from dusk till dawn.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, it's also worked out for you as well. We talked about the success you've had at Valley Preferred Cycling Center so far this summer. But let's go back to early March of 2018 when you were crowned world champion. Take us through that moment. What was that like? I mean, culmination of a dream, I have to believe.
Well, yes, very unexpected as well. It was pretty hard to realize, to be honest, because I came out there and I had a sprint earlier in the week, and it didn't go quite as well as I wanted to. But yeah, I think I just got on track that morning and thought, you know what do I have to lose? And every race, just take it as it comes and race the best race you can and just get everything out there. And eventually it all turned out, and you don't have a lot of days in your career when everything falls into place, and that was one of those days.
Wow.
So that was perfect for me.
A perfect day back in March of 2018, and hoping for more perfect days for the two of you as you guys go forward. Nicky Degrendele from Belgium, Grant Koontz from right here in the United States. Let's talk about Paris Olympics 2024. This is something that's on the radar for both of you. And Nicky, let's start with you. What would the realization of that dream be like for you, just to qualify for the Olympics and be able to represent your country on that stage? What would that mean?
Well, I don't look at the Olympics as just going. I've wanted to go to Tokyo as well, but due to a shortage of points throughout the whole qualification period, it was impossible to go. But like I say, I'm not just wanting to go.
Yeah, okay.
If I'm going, I want to get a medal, and I'm not going for less than that.
That's great. And Grant, how about you? Training for the Olympics, obviously wanting to be there, but wanting to show well if you get that opportunity as well.
Yeah, definitely. And it's kind of been on my radar since I was a kid. Like, that's one of the reasons I started cycling in the first place. And so it was definitely felt like a pipe dream until just recently, and now it feels like a goal. So that even that in itself is special, but yeah, it would definitely be like a special treat to be able to go and not just participate, but compete and be like medal capable and really fight for those top spots.
We were talking before we came out on set about how specifically here in the United States, we'd like to see track cycling continue to grow here in this country. You represent Star Track Cycling, and that's a nonprofit organization that's working towards getting more kids on bikes. Talk to us in the hopes of enhancing cycling and track cycling here in the United States. How rewarding has that experience been when you've had the opportunity to work with kids on bikes?
Oh, it's huge, and I think it keeps everything into perspective. Like, there's competing and there's the selfishness aspect of sport, and it's easy to get carried away with that and kind of wrapped up in that self-centeredness, but at the same time, to be able to race for a team that is focused on the youth and focused on giving back. And even earlier this year, I got to race in Switzerland with my teammate Anton, who came up through that after-school program since he was 14 years old, and now he's racing in Europe. So It's like, it really is it comes full circle, and it's cool to be able to encourage and mentor and inspire those kids to, if they want to keep going, and if not, just have fun.
and growing that next generation of cycling hopefuls. And you guys do that each and every, Friday and Saturday. You compete at Valley Preferred Cycling Center. You see the kids in the stands. They look up to you guys, and they love the energy and the excitement there. Of course, you'll be back on the track this Friday, but you do get some downtime, at least a little bit. And Nicky, for you, first time in the United States, what have you been able to do any sightseeing here in the U.S. Outside of just lovely Trexlertown?
Yes, I actually had a good excuse to go up to New York because there was a crit going on at the moment. I think it was in Harlem last Sunday or the Sunday before. And it was a good excuse, so we stayed close to Times Square and had a night stroll through the city with a city bike. And then I think the Sunday I did a 2.5-hour tour through whole New York, Central Park, everything. So it was quite nice. It was just good to sightsee that way.
And of course, doing your sightseeing on a bike, of course, because you guys just can't seem to help yourself, which is awesome. Grant, one last thing I want to ask you, and this is something we talked about before coming out on set. We talked about your journey and going from the road and gravel to the track. You mentioned living in your car for a number of years, and there's someone who's been very important in your path and kind of helping to stabilize things and give you a foundation. Mm-hmm. Can you talk a little bit about how important your girlfriend has been in this process for you and your continued growth?
It's been huge, honestly, and it's like really feels like a lifetime ago that I was living in my car by myself with my dog. It's a little different than having a partner, and like she comes out to races to be with me and encourage me and support me, and even when she's not here, like it's just lovely to have that partnership and always have that kind of backbone to the whole thing. And she believes in me when I don't believe in myself. So even that alone it's worth the world.
We all need people like that in our lives, whether you're a track cyclist or a broadcast journalist. We all need those kind of people in our corner, and those support staffs so important to helping you guys get to the high, lofty points that you have gotten to so far. Grant Koontz, Nicky Degrendele, thank you guys so much for joining us here this evening, and best of continued success at Valley Preferred Cycling Center and the rest of the summer.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Don't forget, these guys back on the track coming up this Friday as the T-Town Summer Games series continues. And of course, our coverage of all the action from Valley Preferred Cycling Center continues all summer long here on the Service Electric Network. We're back to put a wrap on this evening's edition of Lehigh Valley Sports Scene right after this.